You froze. You froze.
I
Okay, get your mic.
froze.
Let's get started. Come on. Welcome, everybody, to our horrific Christmas time. You know, throughout history, Christmas has been one of, well, horror, ghost,
Horror.
but also miracles. Do you think
That is so
miracles?
true.
Are you lonesome tonight? And so I shared last Tuesday the miracle of Hello Wacky Halloween on Christmas.
Miracle. Hello, Wacky Halloween.
Wacky Halloween. Wacky's Halloween. Kevin and I are going to entertain you.
Can't quit freezing.
So Halloween's history is deep in ghost tales as well as miracles. The miracle of Halloween. I gave my story. If you didn't catch it, you need to go back because that is a miracle right there. I know you don't understand how that's a miracle if you didn't
Right
see the
there.
story, so you go back and hear the story. But I'm not going to steal the show tonight because Catherine, Lady Cat Marie, has her own little miraculous story that happened at a place called Caritas, which is a Catholic center over here in Shelby County. And Catherine?
Caritas is a Catholic place, and the Virgin Mary, there was a sighting of the Virgin Mary there. Somebody had a vision of the Virgin Mary out in the field. I've been going through a lot the last few weeks, and I'm not an overly religious person. And
What she's
but I
saying
felt
is she's not religious at all.
I'm not religious at all. But one time when we went out there, I felt a little peace inside this certain room that's called the crucifix room, which is a prayer room. And it's got a crucifix, Jesus hanging on the cross and he's bloody and all that. And it kind of scared me at first, but then I became really relaxed with it. Well, the other day, everybody knows that my mother has pancreatic cancer. And I'm a very emotional person and I have been very upset. And I just needed a few moments to gather myself and get to where I needed to be in my head. And I thought that would be a nice place to go sit and just talk to myself or God, whatever else is out there. So I get in my mother's car and I drive up there. I left her in the good hands of my stepfather. And I get up there and I immediately step out of the car and I step onto a tack. And it goes through my shoe and into my foot. Yeah, I know. The devil can step on a tack. Maybe I'm the devil. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I said immediately, and so I pulled it out. And I threw it off in the woods, and I started walking toward the
And I
place.
noticed nobody's arguing with her on that
I know. So I walk up.
Not like even Kevin came in and said, "Oh, you're not the devil." No, he's sitting there thinking.
Oh.
Well, I walk up to the gift shop because I want to get a rosary for my mother. My mother's not Catholic, but my stepfather is, and I thought the rosary would comfort my mother. So this gift shop was closed. So I turn around and I'm walking up to the main building, and dadgummit, there's a tree root growing underneath the sidewalk. I trip, about tumble, and lose everything. And I'm still a little teary-eyed in here. And I walk inside the main building, and there's this lady in there, and I said, I need to pray. And I said, can I use your crucifix room? And she said, of course. I said, I don't remember where it is. And she walked me down there, and she said, do you want the door open or do you want the door closed? I said, ma'am, I probably need the door closed because I might have to cry out a little bit. And I know I did. I cried out quite a bit. Well, I kneeled down and I was exhausted after a few moments. And I turned and I sat down on the ground. And this next thing I know, the door's opening. And this little young lady, I'd say she's about 14 to 17 years old. I couldn't give it, it was dark. And she came in, she did the sign of the cross or whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called on her forehead, chest, back and forth. And she came in and she knelt down beside me. She placed a hand on my back and she placed a hand on my shoulder. And she prayed with me for a moment. Then this girl hands me a rosary and she says, "Here, take this and hold on tight to it and do not let it go." I held on tight to it, didn't let it go. I prayed, she prayed, we were praying, and I got done. I said, "I'm done." I said, "I think I'm at peace now." And I turned and I looked at her, and she's just beautiful little girl. And I said, "My name's Catherine. What's yours?" And she said, "Mary." And I told her, "Thank you very much for praying with me." And she said, "You're welcome." Next thing I know, she's gotten up and she's walking out the door. I get up and walk out the door. I can't find her. I cannot find this child anywhere. Nowhere at all. Yeah, I know, Kevin. I know. And I mean, I walked around everywhere looking for her and could not find her. So I leave Caritas. I still have that rosary in my hand. So I know that I wasn't dreaming because I didn't buy one because the store was closed. I know I wasn't dreaming. So I know there was, something put it in my hand. Somebody put it in my hand. But I don't know if she was even real.
So
That's
the
amazing.
ghost of Mary.
Yes, and her name was Mary. And I was thinking, all I could say was, "God, you sent me a child. You sent me a child. Your mother."
In 1 week's time, there's been two phenomenal things that's happened in our lives, and that's why I said angels are real. And clearly, for Catherine's sake, there was a real angel that brought that rosary and gave her some comfort, and then vanished into wherever. And then, of course, in my case, it was the return of this ring that had been gone and missing for just short of a decade, 7 years, 6 years, something like that. So anyway, just wanted to share those on an upbeat moment as we go into the holidays. Here we're getting very close. This is the 13th, lucky 13. And so, Kevin, do you have a doll that you're going to talk to tonight?
Not a doll per se, but I do have a haunted item here.
I watched something interesting, an old movie clip, comedy routine that popped up on my somewhere on my internets.
On your
And
somewhere.
your bell was on that little sketch. Yes, that bell, that exact bell, absolutely was on his desk, and he rang it. He said, "Time's up," and then he hit that bell.
Well, I got a famous bell.
So all I know is it was identical to that, and it wasn't used at a motel, but it was at his desk. And as soon as whoever he was counseling with or whatever, he said, "Time's up," and went ding.
Ding.
So quit showing your armpit. God,
I didn't show my armpit. God dang.
I just ate, Kevin.
You just ate.
I didn't eat, Kevin. I just ate.
I got I don't know if there's anything different here, but I got a new trigger object here. I want to see if
So
what happens.
is that a painting that I've seen before of yours?
Yeah, I might have had it over there at the office back in the day.
Okay, now over there to the right in the camera is a yellow ball. What's that ball?
Yes, I forgot this ball was laying out there with the dolls, and I thought, well, I should bring it here and see if it moves.
So maybe some spirit would, that's been a thing, the ball moving, and
Yeah.
that's why they show that clip. But Wacky's Halloween and others may have not seen. Look up that clip of that moon ball jumping off your head.
Okay, I got it up here.
Since you were talking about balls, and of course, just for everybody, we will get into later the Kevin twerking routine, so don't go away.
Oh, come on. What's that about no twerking?
It's going to be a Christmas twerk. We had the Halloween twerk, now we're going to have a Christmas twerk. All right, Catherine, you're being quiet. Jump in there and say something.
Well, Kevin, what do you think about my story? I mean,
I thought it was a beautiful story.
I brought
Catherine,
the rosary home and gave it to Mother. Yeah.
Yeah, be careful. He will steal that story and make a book out of it. You know him.
Oh.
Well, when I got done, I rode back down to the end of the hallway. I mean, to the end of the driveway. The ball's calling me, Kevin. That ball is moving. I swear I saw it move a couple of times. But anyway.
A real quick interjection of something I want to give from my perspective, and I'm sure Catherine's as well as her mother. Kevin, thank you for the book that you donated to her mother. And Catherine, has she made any comments about the book?
Oh, she loves it. She loves it. She absolutely loves it. It made her. She said, "I've got some wonderful people in my life." I always worry, am I doing the right thing in this world? And then I get friends like you guys.
Hey, you're not doing right. You're not doing right. I don't know what gave you that idea.
That really love me and care about me.
Oh, wait a minute. Who do you think loves you?
You and Kevin.
Maybe Kevin does.
Now listen to this man right here with his evil.
Yes, everyone should listen to me.
Now, let me tell you what Kelsey did.
No.
Okay. I am going to tell it, Kelsey. In the middle of the night, I was dying of thirst, and I was at the hospital with my mother, and I couldn't go anywhere, and there's nothing open. And in the middle of the night, that man brought me a unsweet tea from Whataburger because I was so thirsty. But I was so tired by the time he got there, I was passed out.
That was not me that took it up there. I don't know who she's talking about.
Whatever. I thought I dreamed him being there.
It was a dream. More like a nightmare.
Well, then how did I get that unsweet tea from Whataburger?
I'm telling you, somebody brought it to you.
But anyway, they had me in recliners. I'm trying to talk.
Oh, sorry.
They had me in a recliner, and I've lost so much weight. I was laying in this recliner, and every time I'd move, it would literally shoot me out of the recliner. So one of the nurses brought me something that laid completely flat, and she laid me, and I laid down, and when I did, I was out. But I was so thankful for that tea because I had it that next morning when I finally woke up.
Oh, Wacky's Halloween. Kevin has written 14 books. His are more interesting than mine, but I've written 31 books, and we can find all of them, mine and his, on Amazon.com and a couple other sites, as well as myhauntedolls.com. So, yes, we have been prolific book writers.
I got that clip up here if you're ready for that.
Let's watch some spookiness here. And it's Kevin and his magic balls, or haunted balls. How's that? And Catherine, thank you for sharing the story.
All right, let me get the mute off here. Come on.
Is this the twerking video?
Is it what? No, it's not the twerking video.
So, what do you think about them apples?
I want to watch it slowed down.
Actually, that was not an apple. That was a moon. A
How
moon
you
ball.
like them? How you like them balls? Here it is, slow down.
Watch.
Now watch how the stand doesn't move. Look at
It just rolls right out of there.
that. Yeah, it's like something just kind of tapped it underneath, kind of like thumped it.
Are you sure you're not blowing hot air on it?
How my guy ain't got that much hot air from across the top?
You got a pretty thick chest. That was phenomenal. And then you add that to, where's that yellow ball?
There we go.
And as Kevin does his spirit box session with Catherine on this picture, you're going to keep that ball kind of in view there.
Yeah.
And if anybody
Yeah.
sees anything, where's the cat ball? Did you give up on it?
Right here.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see that. All right. So everybody pay close attention. If you hear anything on the spirit box that makes sense, if you see any movement of any of that yellow ball or the cat ball going off, say something. And Kevin, what's the background of this little girl picture? Do you know much about it?
Yes, this is Mary. And
Another freaking Mary.
And here, oh yeah. And here's the story that the lady who owned this provided me. The portrait of the child came from a house that my cousin had purchased with her husband. My cousin bought this house, and from what she told, the house had a long and troubled history. However, my cousin is not someone who truly believes in the supernatural, and so she and her husband bought the house. The portrait you see you see here was found in the attic of the house. My cousin thought it was pretty and well made, so she cleaned it and brought it into the family room as a piece of art. After my cousin brought in the portrait into the family room, she stated that she would hear a child's giggle, and sometimes she would hear footsteps when no one was around on the staircase near the room where the portrait was hanging. She brought me in to take a look at the picture, and from what I could read from it was this. The child's name is Mary or Miriam. She was the toddler daughter of the couple in the late 1800s who at one time or another owned the house that my cousin had bought. The child was killed in an accident, something involving falling. They were beyond devastated by their loss, and the father had this portrait made. This is, of course, not the original portrait, but one of the stipulations that the couple had in their will was that a likeness of their daughter was to be part of the house always. Someone must have owned the house before that didn't like the picture or maybe didn't care and just put it in the attic. My cousin was disturbed by this and asked me to take the portrait with me. I took it home, and much of the same experiences took place in my house. There was the sound of a child giggling, footsteps on the stairs, and sometimes I'd hear a child calling my name. So that is the story that she sent with this little girl, little Mary.
Mary. And before he gets into the spirit box session, I like to do a little thing called words of wisdom for those who want to be wise. So here is tonight's words of wisdom on December 13th, 2022. And this is a good bet if you follow these words carefully. Are you ready?
Yep. There you go. Because it just might roll around in some dog.
All right.
me.
What?
I said, oh, me.
Oh, her.
Oh, did that
You
run
know,
today? Now you can't do
no,
the
I was laughing. I have a picture similar to the one Kevin's got. I believe it's over at Kelsey's house.
It is. It is. I've got it right here. It's kept me good company. Nobody else keep me company, but it will.
She's got a little
Is she holding a? Oh, she's holding a rabbit. Mine's holding a doll.
Ah.
Let me,
Oh, well, I've got the spirit
you
box
just want
on.
to who?
And so, Mary, I've got this cat ball you've seen me play with. There we go. I'm tapping it. Really, all you got to do is just kind of move it or touch it. And so you can play with that. And the bell you can ring. And over there, right over there is that yellow ball. If you want to go over there and kick that or nudge it and make it roll, we would love to see that. Now I've got, turn that camera off. There we go. I've got this spirit box on, we call it. This not really a box, it's a flat, it's really a phone, believe it or not. But if you come close to this and talk into it, I should be able to hear you. So there we go. Get this straightened back out. So I'm not hearing anything from there yet. Mary, are you still here with your picture?
I'm here, Kevin.
Well, that's cool. And that little piece of music played right before you said that.
I know. It was weird. She's here.
Oh. Ooh. Someone with you?
Project for
Was it-
gone on so
Thought I heard Roger in there and something about gone unsolved or something. I'm glad you're still here all this time later with your picture. You were here with me at the old house and then we moved here. But here I got you hanging in my bedroom. Do you like where your picture is in the bedroom?
She's very young. He said yes.
Yes.
She's very young. She's about 3.
3.
3.
Oh, do you want to play with the ball over there or do you want to make this one light up? If you play with it, a little tiny ball.
start in
Yeah, just start anywhere.
It's dark in here.
Oh, it's dark in here. Thought it said start anywhere. Well,
we got you.
we got you. Somebody's here helping. Sounds like there might be an adult or two kind of watching after her. Is that some of your family?
Or so
Is that poor soul or horse soul?
Herschel.
Herschel.
His name is Herschel.
Is that your papa's name? I think that was a yes.
She likes the ball, but it's too heavy for her.
The yellow ball.
Yellow ball's too heavy.
Oh,
But she's going to try.
it's a really light ball. It's just rubber with air inside it.
She's
So-
not quite strong enough yet.
Oh. Well, that's too big for you. There's always this little kitty ball here. Look at there how it lights up real pretty when you touch it. So where did your family live?
But
Did you?
exactly that.
Is the ball moving?
I don't see it moving from my angle. I don't know.
It's barely moving. I can tell because the light's bouncing off of it. It looks like it's rocking. It's ever so slightly.
See if I can.
But watch the light. Watch the light that's on it.
See, now you can see my hand shaking. Let me hold this steady.
Now your hand's shaking. I can tell when your hand's shaking when it moves. Will you move the ball?
That's repetitive.
Mary, can you roll the ball over here? Just give it a little tap, a little nudge. Maybe bump it with your foot.
It keeps changing colors.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the camera causing that or not, because this alleged HD camera, it kind of, notice that kind of flickers on the picture there. I'm going to zoom out from the ball a little bit. There we go.
Yeah, zoom out just a little bit. That's good.
So good, bro.
We would love to see you play with the ball. Did you used to play? Did you have a ball to play with in your old house with your family?
But it didn't look like that.
No.
It wasn't a store-bought ball. It was rubber.
That's why I thought it said. I guess they had rubber back in the late 1800s. They had balls back then, I guess.
Yep. I don't know. I
Hey.
can't look it up.
Well, they had them on Little House on the Prairie.
Well, they did. And they were usually made out of like paper or something. Like I don't know. I know they used pig skin to make footballs back then.
Yeah.
Why is it that when we think about the 1800s, we always think about Little House on the Prairie? That was one of my. What was
So-
that?
Sound like I said hang on or something.
Are you trying to do the little ball? The cat ball that lights up? Make those lights go off for us. Make a noise in Kevin's house. Let us know that you're here. Herschel, are you able to do something?
The new.
I like when he gets here. When he gets,
That was a deep voice. I bet they had bells like this around when before you became a spirit. If you want to tap on that, you can.
it's stuck. Put some WD-40 on it next time.
Stuck. Well, I did it.
Nope, that was a tap, tap, tap. And they rang the bell, but they couldn't ring it from there. It stuck. That was tap, tap, tap.
Now I
bell-
swear I saw the ball roll back toward the back wall.
It would be nice if the ball would roll to the back wall or roll this way, whichever way you want to roll it.
Well, it looks closer this way now than it did before, in my opinion.
Oh, I didn't see it moving. This was after I zoomed out.
Um,
And tell your dad to keep disappearing to give your screenshot, make it bigger.
Well, thank you. Well, Mary, do you like to sing? I always ask the kids that because some of them like to sing.
ring around the rosies.
And one time for sure, I had one sing the alphabet, little piece of the alphabet song right through the spirit box. That was years ago. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you fell, Mary. I heard that you fell somewhere. Or that might have been what happened. Is that you in the portrait there?
The ball. Look at the ball.
I think what you need to do is set a mirror up in front of her.
A mirror up in front of her.
Agreed.
I think
Agreed.
Didn't you say agreed?
I think the ball has moved a little because the little hole. I can't see my finger that well. My finger's too big on there. There's a little hole right in there where you put the pump in, and it's moved, angled slightly to the right. It was straight my way a minute ago. So she may have turned it a little and just couldn't see. Did you turn the ball, Mary? Yeah. You play with it all you want to if you want to. Give a little. Oh, that was her. She started to say that.
It's
That was definitely a little bitty girl's voice. Does this little girl look just like you in the picture? I see she's holding a bunny. I used to have 2 real bunnies for pets. Did you
I
have
had one.
one? One was named Thumper and the other one was Rudolph.
Rudolph for a bunny?
Yeah, but the guy that owned him before we got him named him Rudolph. I don't know.
Mine's name was Peter.
Peter, like Peter Rabbit.
Yep. And it was a girl. And she was litter box trained, and she would run around the house. And one day I came home and she was on my bed. And how did my rabbit get on my bed? Couldn't figure it out. But you know what? My rabbits can jump pretty high, apparently. Because my bed's a good 2.5 foot, 3 foot off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then they got hungry over there in Westover and had to eat it.
It lived for 13 years, and rabbits don't live that long. She is buried in the backyard, and I have my own pet cemetery here. She is buried in the backyard, and she has a statue of a rabbit because she is the longest. At the time, she was the longest animal I'd had.
Oh, longest
Like,
lived animal.
well, the longest I'd had that had passed
Yeah.
away. Lakota's pushing 17, and she's a husky.
Oh.
And Juliet's probably 13.
Mary, do you like music?
we're serious.
We're serious. You like serious music?
In the living room.
It's basically what they had back in those days was serious music.
There's something in the video. She said there's something in the video.
Something in the video. This video here?
Set the little ball off, Mary. Was that the spirit box sighing?
It sounded like it was trying to say something. I don't know what.
Mary.
You know, the ghost.
Oh, I'm the ghost.
I'm the ghost.
I guess you are. She kind of looks a little ghost.
What are you doing?
Looks a little ghostly in the picture.
Get her picture closer.
Get her picture
What-
close.
What's to the right of her? What's out that window?
Which way? This way? Oh,
Right, yeah.
there's tree. I think this is hanging down from the bed curtain. That's the whatever you call it.
A tassel.
Yeah, tassel. But outside there, they got trees.
Were you climbing a tree? Did you hit your head when you climbed the tree? When you fell?
They're cute little footsies.
It hurt.
Are you still working on that ball?
They laid you in the bed after you fell, didn't they?
Do everything.
Do
Good.
everything.
Says if you have
Your mama was crying, right? What you're hearing now is the nurses or doctors, whoever, or the adults, I'm assuming, that were standing over us, over you. You're reliving it right now.
On every day.
Had fun every day. Is that what she said?
Just
Too quiet.
You did a lot of talking.
What were you doing in a tree? I keep hearing honey, honey, honey.
Honey.
Yes, it's just like honey, honey, honey. Like, I don't know if they're calling her honey or what.
That's what I was wondering. Is it her mom? Maybe her mama calling her honey, honey, out of in panic, or was she going after some honey in a tree? Maybe.
I don't know, but
I
I'm hearing honey over and over. Good gosh. Okay, I get it, honey. Got it. Saying it. Said it out loud.
porch is
One
that
more
what
time.
I think it said porch.
Less professional.
Professional.
It was the back porch, she said.
here's an example.
Exact.
Do you want to try to light up the little ball, Mary?
Visible.
Visible. Mm. Yes, you can come visible if you want to. We'll look at you. If you want to show yourself.
As the benefit.
It's the bell.
Constant.
Constant. What's constant?
Yeah.
Mary, do you want to tap on something or maybe knock on the wall?
Do a small.
Small. That's okay.
She was very small. She didn't fall out of a tree. They had gotten honey from the tree. She was eating. They were eating honey.
So you can lose Syrian.
Her mama called her honey because she was sweet as honey. Okay.
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
Like brush.
Were you upset that there was no more honey?
That sounded like a burp. That was a burp.
Uh,
I don't think I've gotten a belch from the spirit box before.
They would have
I don't think.
they would have to compete with you two.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us? We got a minute or two. We've been doing this almost 30 minutes now.
She fell down the stairs.
Fell down the stairs. Well, I'm sorry about that.
That's where the porch comes in. Her mama told her she was sweet as honey.
Whose has
Whose hasn't? The bed is where they laid her after she fell. She hit her head.
your description?
I'm describing it. I'm trying to describe every little detail.
You can lose it.
What did you hear? Can you tell us what you heard after you hit your head? Can you tell us more of that?
Prediction. Special.
They put pressure. It's bleeding pretty bad.
We have the manager.
We have the manager. Do we suddenly lapse into Karen?
I can see her. I can see her little body laying on the bed.
So good, right?
So she fell down the stairs, and I guess they picked her up and put her in the bed,
Yeah.
hoping she wasn't dead yet, or
It was. He slipped pretty hard. Hit it pretty hard.
or I wonder was she maybe still alive and succumbed to the injury later on during the night, or or I bet her mama was trying to get her conscious again. She was calling out, "Honey, honey."
Right.
Enhance.
That's her mama.
We know you've had enough.
Dear mama.
Hide the children.
Children.
Bring the children up. Bring the children up the stairs.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
For all of us.
All of us. I think it said 13.
Lower.
Lower.
Only our
Her family gathered around her.
I don't know if that was or another belch.
This gets really ugly. Do you want me to say it? Do you want me to speak it out loud?
Kid's really ugly.
Yeah. She goes into convulsions and throws up. And that's how she passed away.
They made me.
That was a sob right there. Oh, I'm sorry that happened. Your fault. I think we're hearing pieces of the family in the aftermath. How dare you? Sounds like you're getting emotional over there.
Extremely. Because I get the picture, I get the pictures.
Yeah.
Peter. Is that your rabbit's name too?
Did you like to have people read stories to you or tell you stories?
Got a bit from very intense. With the tech. Remain.
We're about to tell some stories in a minute. I don't know if you want to hear them. Some of them are kind of creepy, but is there anything else you want to tell us? Companies up, company something.
Music.
Spiritual.
And her family was pretty well off.
Yeah, I figured this was a kind of a wealthy family.
Did the doctor come?
Leading with spiritual.
I know they had morphine back then.
Stand up.
Lucinda?
Lucinda.
That's your mama? Your grandmama? She's got a lot of people around her.
Well, that's a good thing. You got your family around you again. I'm sure they've all moved into the spirit world by now. Yeah. That was some happy music.
All the ones she knew as humans.
Ah,
Would you come back if you could?
it was like a no.
I know you're capable of doing something phenomenal for us. If you want to gather all your energy,
I was only getting
I was only giving something.
she's making the spirit box go off
Yeah.
a lot.
Is my hand moving through there? All right. Is there anything else before we stop? You're asking something. Or you're asking and then something intelligible or unintelligible.
The dog just started going crazy here.
Uh,
The reason I muted me for a second.
All right, we're going to get into our stories. So if there's any spirits here that don't belong, be sure to go back to where you came from. I'm going to count from 5 and I'm going to turn this off. Any spirits here, please be sure to back up as I close the door here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, Mary. And I'll leave this stuff on if you ever want to try to play with it. Watch, I'm going to take the camera off, and probably in a few minutes, there's going to be all kinds of
I know.
that's happened before.
She was,
Due
she was
to
very vivid with the pictures.
phenomenal things that's happened recently that really brought a lot of things to mind in my life, and I think in Catherine's life too. Some of the not so good news, and then some miracle in between there. Um, I'm taking at least, I think Catherine's on board too, but that's up to her. Kind of a new outlook on life and a new approach. I know that there are very clearly some healing that needs to take place in a spiritual level, in a very real level. And there's a lot of pain and a lot of healing energies needed. And I want to go through something real quick. It won't take but just a few minutes if everybody will bear with me before we move on to our story time. Is that okay, folks?
I'm okay with it.
Oh, I guess so.
So I want you to sit back and I want you to relax, everybody. Just sit back. And I want you to find a pain that's inside of you that isn't healed. It's unhealed. And maybe up until this point, you've never acknowledged that you even have this pain. It does not have to be a physical pain. We're not thinking about just in a physical sense. It could be an emotional pain or whatever. And you seek that out, and this could take some exercise. It doesn't necessarily happen in just one practice of this. But the next step would be to breathe in and embrace the fullness of whatever pain it is, feeling it in its very raw, unfiltered state. You've got to do that in order to be able to deal with it. You've got to feel it. You've got to acknowledge it. You can't hide from it. So breathe it in a very real sense. Take a very deep breath. And then once you have felt that, once you have really felt that, the rawness of whatever pain is existing, then exhale a healing, a compassionate energy to yourself. We spend a lot of our energy worried about other people's healing, and we give other people compassion, but how often do you take the time to allow compassion for yourself? Very personal, intimate way with you. Let your whole body move into the new space of wholeness. And with each round of breath, feel the intensity of the pain decreasing while you're allowing the healing energy to increase. Now, for this to be most effective, you might have to repeat these steps several times. In the beginning, it may be all you do. Learning how to give yourselves compassion and healing is a very important, crucial part of being able to offer compassion and healing to others. Once you feel comfortable with what you're doing in those first 4 steps, then if you feel ready to move on, you'll continue on with these 3 steps. Imagine another person, someone who's experiencing this same emotion, taking a seat across from you. This can be someone you know, and in some instances, I know, Catherine, that you would know this person by name. Not in a real sense, but in your imagination, have this person sit across from you. And it also could be an imaginary person. And when you have imagined this person sitting across from you, then you want to breathe in the pain for both of you, and then exhale compassion to yourself while also receiving it from the other person. As you progress this way, you'll invite more people into your circle, and you'll breathe in the pain for the whole group as you imagine them doing the same, and then send out and receive healing and compassion. With just the power of your attention and your breath, you can move from feeling paralyzed, overwhelmed, or disconnected. Like an alchemist turning lead into gold, you can transmute the world's pain into potent healing energy. We all have things that we are troubled with, that we suffer from. We have loved ones that are suffering. Well, Kevin's father recently knee surgery. Catherine's mother going through a horrible diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. You can help them by helping yourself by going through this process of identifying that pain and allowing compassion for both you and that person. Because if you don't allow that for yourself, you're not going to be good at ministering to that other person. You heal together. And like I said, it's not always going to be able to physically heal. But to be able to deal with whatever physical pain may exist, if you can heal in your soul, if you can heal in your spirit, it'll help you deal with the very real pains of life. I just wanted to go through that for a moment because I know there's a lot of pain existing. I know what Catherine's going through, and it's very exhausting. She's somewhat of an empath because she really feels, and she does have a servant's heart, but she's got to take the time to be able to heal herself and allow that healing energy to encompass her, as we all do, if we're going to reach out to other people and provide them comfort. Being a minister to people is hard work. A lot of people think, oh, you just run around dressed up all day in a car and pray for people or whatever. It's a very deep soul thing for somebody that's really genuine in what they do. Excuse me for taking that 5 minutes to share that with you, but I just felt that it was something that I should do.
And I appreciate it.
So now Kevin's going to tell some terrible stories and just ruin the atmosphere. This is that evil freaking laugh.
I think it's,
Evil freaking
I
laugh.
know it. We could put that. We could record that and use it as a sound thing.
Ruin Christmas.
At least play a Christmas song.
Oh,
Jingle all the way. Gotta work.
and now, ladies and gentlemen, it's story time by Kevin Kane of My Haunted Dolls.
Got his own intro now, Kevin.
And now, even maybe Lady Cat will share a story or two as well.
I would love to.
Okay. This one, a huge mistake is that I don't know why that's called a huge mistake, this story, but I like the little nod to the classic Christmas here. 'Twas 2 nights before Christmas. I came home to a quiet house. Too quiet. Aubrey, I called, where are you? My daughter always greets me with a squeal of delight and a hug, but now there's silence. Aubrey, I called, walking towards the art room. Aubrey. My breath caught in my throat. The art room was a disaster. Paint splattered everywhere, dripping down the walls in thick lines. Snapped colored pencils all over the floor. Aubrey's latest piece, a drawing of a wolf walking through the forest, was halfway torn, nearly decapitated. Silence. Then, a voice from upstairs. Help me. Please, somebody help me. Aubrey's voice. I bolted out of the room, up the stairs, and into the master bedroom. Thank God, I thought you were... I was staring at a laptop screen. Aubrey sat in the center of a shadowy room, bound to a chair on the screen. Nearly unrecognizable, with tangled hair, a bruised face, and grimy clothes. Help me, please, somebody help me, she screamed. Aubrey, I'm here, I shouted, even though the webcam light was off. Aubrey! The video jittered. Then she looked up at the ceiling and screamed again, help me, please, somebody, help me. It was playing the same 20-second clip over and over and over. A black thumb drive stuck out of the USB port. I yanked it out. The video froze, contorting my little girl's face. Then it fizzled to black. I turned the drive over in my hands, No markings, no logos. I stuck it back into the computer and scanned the contents. There were only 2 files on it. One was the video, and then there was a file named README text. So I clicked. It read, Les, we need the farm on Dairy Avenue for the surgeon. The owners won't give it up. We need you to pose as a real estate agent for Pure Serenity Realty and get it for us. If you don't buy the farm, your daughter will. I picked up the phone and dialed 911. 911, Leanne speaking. What's your emergency? My daughter, Aubrey, she's been abducted and... Okay, slow down, deep breaths. Can you tell us what happened? I told her everything. When I finished, she gave me a vague, we'll send someone your way, before the call disconnected. No one ever came to my address. After an hour passed, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I glanced at the desk. A stack of Pure Serenity Realty business cards sat next to the laptop. I stretched out a hand and picked one up. The door swung open to reveal the same tired-looking 50-something-year-old man I'd seen the last 5 times. Yes? I sucked in a breath of air. I was desperate now. It had been 5 days since I last saw my daughter. All I had to remember her by was a torn drawing and a 20-second clip. Good morning, sir. Have you perhaps reconsidered our offer yet? It was a nice little farm, rolling hills of green, surrounded by patches of woods. Just beyond the tree line sat a wooden shack, its roof poking out as if watching us. Look, I told you the first time, I'm not selling the farm. Stop coming round here. It's not going to happen. I walked away from the house, dejected, terrified, reeling with thoughts of my poor little girl. I needed to get that family off of the farm now. And the carrot method of offering $100,000 more than the estimate was not working. Maybe it was time for the stick. That night, I snuck into the barn, killed one of their sheep, strung up its body. I figured they'd be out by noon, but I was wrong. That evening, I pulled into the diner for dinner. I was a mess, broken, despondent. I tried the most gruesome ways to get them out, and I'd failed. May I take your order? A woman with a gold name tag that read Melissa approached me. Yeah, a double cheeseburger, please, and a Diet Coke. As she left, my eyes caught on the TVs around the room. They were old, not flat screens, but small, boxy, heavy things held up by a cable. Some local newscaster was blathering on about the weather. Cold and clear in Serenity Falls tonight. Watch out as always for icy roads. The video feed interrupted. Static filled the screen. And then a different video flicked on. Help me, please, somebody help me. I was staring at my daughter, tied to the chair with thick rope, tears streaming down her face. Help me, please, somebody help me. The clip played 3 more times, then it fizzled back into the newscaster. Bundle up, Serenity Falls. Now on to the news in town. No one in the diner seemed to notice. They were all absorbed in their smartphones, their cups of watered-down coffee. Clink! The waitress set down the double cheeseburger and fries. I numbly stared at the plate and counted 26 French fries before I snapped out of it. I ran out of the diner without eating, without paying. Melissa called out to me as I left, but I didn't even turn my head. I felt the phone in my pocket buzz. I reached in and pulled it out. A new text from an unknown number said, "Aubrey's having fun with us," with an image attached. An image of my daughter filled the screen, hanging upside down, mouth stretched open in a scream. I broke into a run, passing the dollar store and the funeral home. Finally, the water treatment plant appeared in the distance, lit dimly by a few flickering street lamps. And that's where I saw the clown. At first, I thought it was some kind of tacky statue, like those weird Ronald McDonald statues outside of some of the McDonald's. But as I stared at the shadow halfway between the sidewalk and the water treatment plant, it moved. It turned its ball-tipped nose in my direction, and stared at me with black eyes that sharply contrasted with the white makeup of his face. Beep, beep. My eyes snapped away from the clown as I frantically pulled the cell phone out of my pocket to see another text from the same number. It read, "She's crying for her daddy. How sweet." I sprinted the rest of the way to the farm. When I got there, I stood in the darkness, glancing around. The shack poked out of the trees as if silently egging me on. A little hen house stood off to the far right, the sheep pen from where I'd plucked my sacrifice to the left. Mumbled voices came from the right. From the silhouettes cast in a faint porch light, it was the man I tried to persuade so many times before, with a young woman, maybe his daughter. My heart plummeted. I glanced from the house to the darkened yard to the shack. I pulled out my phone, glanced one last time at the text. "She's crying for her daddy. How sweet." And then I walked towards the house, my fingers landing on the cold, steel knife in my pocket.
Ooh.
Ooh, that's a cliffhanger story.
Here is the story, The Kit Bag.
The kit bag.
KIT, Kit Bag. When the words "not guilty" sounded through the crowded courtroom that dark December afternoon, Arthur Wilbraham, the great criminal KC and leader of the triumphant defense, was represented by his junior, but Johnson, his private secretary, carried the verdict across to his chambers like lightning. "It's what we expected, I think," said the barrister without emotion, "and personally I am glad the case is over." There was no particular sign of pleasure that his defense of John Turk, the murderer, on a plea of insanity had been successful. For no doubt he felt, as everybody who had watched the case felt, that no man had ever better deserved the gallows. "I'm glad too," said Johnson. He had sat in the court for 10 days watching the face of the man who had carried out with callous detail one of the most brutal and cold-blooded murders of recent years. B. Counsel glanced up at his secretary. They were more than employer and employee. For family and other reasons, they were friends. "Ah, I remember, yes," he said with a kind smile. "And you want to get away for Christmas? You're going to skate and ski in the Alps, aren't you? If I was your age, I'd come with you." Johnson laughed shortly. He was a young man of 26 with a delicate face like a girl's. "I can catch the morning boat now," he said, "but that's not the reason I'm glad the trial is over. I'm glad it's over because I've seen the last of the man's dreadful face. It's positively haunted me. Bat white skin with the black hair brushed low over his forehead is a thing I shall never forget. And the description of the way the dismembered body was crammed and packed with lime into that—" "Don't dwell on it, my dear fellow," interrupted the other. looking at him curiously out of his keen eyes. Don't think about it. Such pictures have a trick of coming back when one least wants them. He paused a moment. Now go, he added presently, and enjoy your holiday. I shall want all your energy for my parliamentary work when you get back. And don't break your neck skiing. Johnson shook hands and took his leave. At the door, he turned suddenly. I knew there was something I wanted to ask you, he said. Would you mind lending me one of your kit bags? It's too late to get one tonight, and I leave in the morning before the shops are open. Of course, I'll send Henry over with it to your rooms. You shall have it the moment I get home. I promise to take great care of it, said Johnson, gratefully delighted to think that within 30 hours he would be nearing the brilliant sunshine of the high Alps in winter. He thought of that criminal court. The thought of that criminal court was like an evil dream in his mind. He dined at his club and went on to Bloomsbury, where he occupied the top floor in one of those old gaunt houses in which the rooms are large and lofty. The floor below his own was vacant and unfurnished, and below that were other lodgers whom he did not know. It was cheerless, and he looked forward heartily to a change. The night was even more cheerless. It was miserable, and few people were about. A cold, sleety rain was driving down the streets before the keenest east wind he had ever felt. It howled dismally among the big, gloomy houses of the great squares, and when he reached his rooms, he heard it whistling and shouting over the world of black roofs beyond his windows. In the hall, he met his landlady, shading a candle from the draughts with her thin hand. This come by a man from Mr. Wilbraham, sir. She pointed to what was evidently the kit bag, and Johnson thanked her and took it upstairs with him. I shall be going abroad in the morning for 10 days, Mrs. Monks, he said. I'll leave an address for letters. And I hope you'll have a Merry Christmas, sir, she said in a raucous, wheezy voice that suggested spirits and better weather than this. I hope so, too, replied her lodger, shuddering a little as the wind went roaring down the street outside. When he got upstairs, he heard the sleet volleying against the window panes. He put his kettle on to make a cup of hot coffee and then set about putting a few things in order for his absence. And now I must pack. Such as my packing is, he laughed to himself and set to work at once. He liked the packing, for it brought the snow mountains so vividly before him and made him forget the unpleasant scenes of the past 10 days. Besides, it was not elaborate in nature. His friend had lent him the very thing, a stout canvas kit bag, sack-shaped with holes round the neck for the brass bar and padlock. It was a bit shapeless, true, and not much to look at, but its capacity was unlimited, and there was no need to pack carefully. He shoved in his waterproof coat, his fur cap and gloves, his skates and climbing boots, his sweater, snow boots, and ear caps. And then on the top of these, he piled his woolen shirt and underwear and his thick socks and knickerbockers. The dress suit came next in case the hotel people dressed for dinner. And then, thinking of the best way to pack his white shirts, he paused a moment to reflect. That's the worst of these kit bags, he mused vaguely, standing in the center of the sitting room where he had come to fetch some string. It was after 10 o'clock. A furious gust of wind rattled the windows as though to hurry him up, and he thought with pity of the poor Londoners whose Christmas would be spent in such a climate, whilst he was skimming over snowy slopes and bright sunshine and dancing in the evening with rosy-cheeked girls. Ah, that reminded him. He must put in his dancing pumps and evening socks. He crossed over from his sitting room to the cupboard of the landing where he kept his linen. And as he did so, he heard someone coming softly up the stairs. He stood still a moment on the landing to listen. It was Mrs. Monk's step, he thought. She must be coming up with the last post. But then the steps ceased suddenly, and he heard no more. They were at least 2 flights down, and he came to the conclusion that they were too heavy to be those of his bibulous landlady. No doubt they belonged to a late lodger who had mistaken his floor and went into his bedroom, and he packed his pumps and dress shirts as best he could. So Kit Bag by this time was 2/3 full and stood upright on its own base like a sack of flour. For the first time, he noticed that it was old and dirty, and the canvas faded and worn, and that it had obviously been subjected to rather rough treatment. It was not a very nice bag to have sent him, certainly not a new one, or one that his chief valued. He gave the matter a passing thought and went on his way packing. Once or twice, however, he caught himself wondering who it could be have wandering down below. For Mrs. Monks had not come up with the letters, and the floor was empty and unfurnished. From time to time, moreover, he was almost certain he heard a soft tread of someone padding about over the bare boards, cautiously, stealthily, as silently as possible, and further, that the sounds had been lately coming distinctly nearer. For the first time in his life, he began to feel a little creepy. Then, as though to emphasize this feeling, an odd thing happened. As he left the bedroom, having just packed his recalcitrant white shirts, he noticed that the top of the kit bag lopped over towards him with an extraordinary resemblance to a human face. It fell into a fold like a nose and a forehead, and the brass rings for the padlock just filled the position of the eyes. A shadow, or was it a travel stain? For he could not tell exactly. Looked like hair. It gave him rather a turn, for it was so absurdly, so outrageously like the face of John Turk, the murderer. He laughed. He went into the front room where the light was stronger. That horrid case has gotten on my mind, he thought. I shall be glad of the change of scene and air. In the sitting room, however, he was not pleased to hear again the stealthy tread upon the stairs, and to realize that it was much closer than before, as well as unmistakably real. And this time he got up and went out to see who it could be creeping about on the upper staircase at such a late hour. But the sound ceased. There was no one visible on the stairs. He went to the floor below, not without trepidation, and turned on the electric light to make sure that no one was hiding in the empty rooms of the unoccupied suite. There was not a stick of furniture large enough to hide a dog. Then he called over the banisters to Mrs. Monk's, but there was no answer, and his voice echoed down into the dark vault of the house and was lost in the roar of the gale that howled outside. Everyone was in bed and asleep, everyone except himself and the owner of this soft and stealthy tread. My absurd imagination, I suppose, he thought. It must have been the wind after all, although it seemed so very real and close. I thought. He went back to his packing. It was by this time getting on towards midnight. He drank his coffee up, lit another pipe, the last before turning in. It is difficult to say exactly at what point fear begins. When the causes of that fear are not plainly before your eyes, impressions gather on the surface of the mind, film by film, as ice gathers upon the surface of still water, but often so lightly that they claim no definite recognition from the consciousness. Then a point is reached where the accumulated impressions become a definite emotion, and the mind realizes that something has happened. With something of a start, Johnson suddenly recognized that he felt nervous, oddly nervous. Also, that for some time past, the causes of this feeling had been gathering slowly in his mind, but that he had only just reached the point where he was forced to acknowledge them. It was a singular and curious malaise that had come over him, and he hardly knew what to make of it. He felt as though he were doing something that was strongly objected to by another person, moreover, who had some right to object. It was a most disturbing and disagreeable feeling, not unlike the persistent promptings of conscience. Almost, in fact, as if he were doing something he knew to be wrong. Yet, though he searched vigorously and honestly in his mind, he could nowhere lay his finger upon the secret of this growing uneasiness, and it perplexed him. More, it distressed and frightened him. Pure nerves, I suppose, he said aloud with a forced laugh. Mountain air will cure all that. Ah, he added, still speaking to himself, and that reminds me, my snow glasses. He was standing by the door of the bedroom during this brief soliloquy, and as he passed quickly towards the sitting room to fetch them from the cupboard, he saw out of the corner of his eyes the indistinct outline of a figure standing on the stairs a few feet from the top. It was someone in a stooping position with one hand on the banisters and the face peering up towards the landing, and at the same moment he heard a shuffling footstep. The person who had been creeping about below all this time and had at last come up to his own floor. Who in the world could it be? And what in the name of heaven did he want? Johnson caught his breath sharply and stood stock still. Then, after a few seconds' hesitation, he found his courage and turned to investigate. He saw, to his utter amazement, the stairs were empty. There was no one. He felt a series of cold shivers run down him, and something about the muscles of his legs gave a little and grew weak. For the space of several minutes, he peered steadily into the shadows that congregated about the top of the staircase where he had seen the figure, and then he walked fast, almost ran, in fact, into the light of the front room, but hardly had he passed into the doorway when he heard someone come up the stairs behind him with a quick bound and go softly into his bedroom. It was a heavy, but at the same time a stealthy footstep, the tread of somebody who did not wish to be seen, and it was at this precise moment that the nervousness he had hitherto experienced leaped the boundary line and entered the state of fear, almost of acute, unreasoning fear, before it turned into terror. There was a further boundary to cross, and beyond that again lay the region of pure horror. Johnson's position was an unviable one. By Jove, that was someone on the stairs then, he muttered, his flesh crawling all over, and whoever it was has now gone into my bedroom. His delicate pale face turned absolutely white, and for some minutes he hardly knew what to think or do. Then he realized intuitively that delay only set a premium upon fear, and he crossed the landing boldly and went straight into the other room where, a few seconds before, the steps had disappeared. Who's there? Is that you, Mrs. Monks? He called out loud as he went, and heard the first half of his words echo down the empty stairs, while the second half fell dead against the curtains in a room that apparently held no other human figure than his own. Who's there? He called again in a voice unnecessarily loud and that only just held firm. What do you want here? The curtain swayed slightly, and as he saw it, his heart felt as if it almost missed a beat, yet he dashed forward and drew them aside with a rush. A window, streaming with rain, was all that met his gaze. He continued his search, but in vain. The cupboards held nothing but rows of clothes hanging motionless, and under the bed there was no sign of anyone hiding. He stepped backwards into the middle of the room, and as he did so, something all but tripped him up. Turning with a sudden spring of alarm, he saw the kit bag. Odd, he thought. That's not where I left it. A few moments before, it had surely been on his right, between the bed and the bath. He did not remember having moved it. It was very curious. What in the world was the matter with everything? Were all his senses gone queer? A terrific gust of wind tore at the windows, dashing the sleet across the glass with the force of small gunshot, and then fled away, howling dismally over the waste of Bloomsbury roofs. A sudden vision of the Channel next day rose in his mind and recalled him sharply to realities. There's no one here at any rate, that's quite clear, he exclaimed aloud. Yet at the same time he uttered them, he knew perfectly well that his words were not true and that he did not believe them himself. He felt exactly as though someone was hiding close about him, watching all his movements, trying to hinder his packing in some way. And two of my senses, he added, keeping up the pretense, had played me the most absurd tricks. The steps I heard and the figure I saw were both entirely imaginary. He went back to the front room, poked the fire into a blaze, and sat down before it to think. What impressed him more than anything else was the fact that the kit bag was no longer where he had left it. It had been dragged nearer to the door. What happened afterwards that night happened, of course, to a man already excited by fear, and was perceived by a mind that had not the full and proper control, therefore, of the senses. Outwardly, Johnson remained calm and master of himself to the end, pretending to the very last that everything he witnessed had a natural explanation and was merely delusions of his tired nerves. But inwardly, in his very heart, he knew all along that someone had been hiding downstairs in the empty suite when he had come in, that this person had watched his opportunity and then stealthily made his way up to the bedroom, and that all he saw and heard afterwards was the moving of the kit bag to other things this story has to tell were caused directly by the presence of this invisible person. And it was here, just when he most desired to keep his mind and thoughts controlled, that the vivid pictures received day after day upon the mental plates exposed in the courtroom of the Old Bailey came strongly to light and developed themselves in the dark room of his inner vision. Unpleasant, haunting memories have a way of coming to life again just when the mind least desires them, in the silent watches of the night, on sleepless pillows, during the lonely hours spent by sick and dying beds. And so now, in the same way, Johnson saw nothing but the dreadful face of John Turk, the murderer, lowering at him from every corner of his mental field of vision, the white skin, the evil eyes, the fringe of black hair low over the forehead. All the pictures of those 10 days in court crowded back into his mind unbidden and very vivid. This is all rubbish and nerves, he explained at length, springing with sudden energy from his chair. I shall finish my packing and go to bed. I'm overwrought, overtired. No doubt at this rate I shall hear steps and things all night. But his face was deadly white all the same. He snatched up his field glasses, walked across the bedroom, humming a music hall song as he went, a trifle too loud to be natural, and the instant he crossed the threshold and stood within the room, something turned cold about his heart, and he felt that every hair on his head stood up. The kit bag lay close in front of him, several feet nearer to the door than he had left it, and just over its crumpled top he saw a head and face slowly sinking down out of sight as though someone were crouching behind it to hide. And at the same moment, a sound like a long drawn sigh was distinctly audible in the still air about him between the gust of the storm outside. Johnson had more courage and willpower than the girlish indecision of his face indicated, but at first such a wave of terror came over him that for some seconds he could do nothing but stand and stare. A violent trembling ran down his back and legs. He was conscious of a foolish, almost hysterical impulse to scream aloud. The sigh seemed to his very ear, and the air still quivered with it. It was unmistakably a human sigh. "Who's there?" he said at length, finding his voice, but thought he meant to speak with loud decision. The tones came out instead in a faint whisper, for he had partly lost the control of his tongue and lips. He stepped forward so that he could see all around and over the kit bag. Of course, there was nothing there, nothing but the faded carpet and the bulging canvas sides. And he put his hands out and threw open the mouth of the sack where it had fallen over, being only 3 parts full. And then he saw for the first time the inside, some 6 inches from the top. There was run a broad smear of a dull crimson. It was an old and faded blood stain. It uttered a scream, and he drew back his hands as if he had been burnt. And at the same moment, the kit bag gave a faint but unmistakable lurch forward toward the door. Johnson collapsed backward, searching with his hands for the support of something solid, and the door, being further behind him than he realized, received his weight just in time to prevent him falling, and shut to with a resounding bang. At the same moment, the swinging of his left arm accidentally touched the electric switch, and the light of the room went out. It was an awkward and disagreeable predicament, and if Johnson had not been possessed of a real pluck, he might have done all manner of foolish things. As it was, however, he pulled himself together and groped furiously for the little brass knob to turn the light on again. But the rapid closing of the door had set the coats hanging on its swinging, and his fingers became entangled in a confusion of sleeves and pockets, so that it was some moments before he found the switch. And in those few moments of bewilderment and terror, 2 things happened that sent him beyond recall over the boundary into the region of genuine horror. He distinctly heard the kit bag shuffling across the floor in jerks, and close to him, in front of his face, sounded once again the sigh of a human being. In his anguished efforts to find the brass button on the wall, he nearly scraped the nails from his fingers. But even then, in those frenzied moments of alarm, so swift and alert are the impressions of a man keyed up by a vivid emotion, he had time to realize that he dreaded the return of the light, that he might be better for him to stay hidden in the merciful screen of darkness. It was but the impulse of a moment, however. Before he had time to act upon it, he had yielded automatically to the original desire, and the room was flooded again with light. But the second instinct had been right. It would have been better for him to have stayed in the shelter of the kind darkness, for there, close before him, bending over the half-packed kit bag, clear as life in the merciless glare of the electric light, stood the figure of none other than John Turk, the murderer. Not 3 feet from him the man stood, the fringe of black hair marked plainly against the pallor of his forehead, the whole horrible presentment of the scoundrel, as vivid as he had seen him day after day in the Old Bailey, when he stood there in the dark, cynical and callous, under the very shadow of the gallows. In a flash, Johnson realized what it had all meant. The dirty and much used bag, the smear of the crimson with the top, the dreadful stretched condition of the bulging sides. He remembered how the victim's body had been stuffed into a canvas bag for burial, the ghastly dismembered fragments forced with lime into this very bag, and the bag itself produced as evidence. It all came back to him as clear as day. Very softly and stealthily, his hand groped behind him for the handle of the door. But before he could actually turn it, the very thing that he most of all dreaded came about, and John Turk lifted his devil's face and looked at him. At the same moment, that heavy sigh passed through the air of the room, formulated somehow into the words, "It's my bag, and I want it." Johnson just remembered clawing the door open, then falling in a heap upon the floor of the landing as he tried frantically to make his way into the front room. He remained unconscious for a long time, and it was still dark when he opened his eyes and realized that he was lying stiff and bruised on the cold boards. Then the memory of what he had seen rushed back into his mind, and he promptly fainted again. When he woke the second time, the wintry dawn had just beginning to peep in through the windows, painting the stairs a cheerless, dismal gray, and he managed to crawl into the front room and cover himself with an overcoat in the armchair, where at length he fell asleep. A great clamor woke him. He recognized Mrs. Monk's voice, loud and voluble. "What, you ain't been to bed, sir? Are you ill, or has anything happened? And there's an urgent gentleman to see you, though. It ain't 7 o'clock yet, and who is it?" he stammered. "It's all right, thanks. Fell asleep in my chair, I suppose. Someone from Mr. Wilbrum's, and he says he ought to see you quick before you go abroad, and I told him, show him up, please, at once." And Johnson, whose head was swirling and his mind was still full of dreadful visions, Mr. Wilbrum's man came in with many apologies and explained briefly and quickly that an absurd mistake had been made and that the wrong kit bag had been sent over to him the night before. Henry somehow got a hold of the one that came over from the courtroom, and Mr. Wilbrum only discovered it when he saw his own lying in his room and asked why it had not gone away. "Oh," said Johnson stupidly, "and he must have brought you the one from the murder case instead, sir, I'm afraid," the man continued without the ghost of an expression on his face. "The one John Turk packed the dead body in. Mr. Willard was awful upset about it, sir, and told me to come over first thing this morning with the right one as you were leaving by boat." He pointed to a clean-looking kit bag on the floor, which he had just brought, "and I was to bring the other one back, sir." For a few minutes Johnson could not find his voice, and at last he pointed in the direction of the bedroom. "Perhaps you would kindly unpack it for me. Just empty the things on the floor." The man disappeared in the other room and was gone for 5 minutes. Johnson heard the shifting to and fro of the bag and the rattle of the skates and boots being unpacked. "Thank you, sir," the man said, returning with the bag folded over his arm. "And can I do anything more to help you, sir?" "What is it?" asked Johnson, seeing that he still had something he wished to say. The man shuffled and looked mysterious. "Beg pardon, sir, but knowing your interest in the Turk case, I thought you'd maybe like to know what's happened." "Yes. John Turk killed himself last night with poison immediately on getting his release, and he left a note for Mr. Wilbraham saying he'd much be obliged if they'd have him put away, same as the woman he murdered in the old kit bag." "What time did he do it?" asked Johnson. 10 o'clock last night, sir," the warden said. There it is. There's my story. I'm sticking to it.
That's your story. You're sticking to it.
Did I chase everybody away?
Carol from Scotland said hello. So,
Oh, hello there. How art thou?
I got
Well, that was. I thought that was a good story, but
yeah.
it ate up a little bit of time, huh?
Well, I got it good. This one isn't too long. I like a good scary Santa story, and this one's kind of
ho ho ho
scary here.
Ho,
24
ho, ho.
Hours Before Christmas, it's called. In the Leonard household, it was the night before Christmas. Lucas, age 14, and Emily, age 8, the house's 2 children, were reading stories in Emily's room. This was because Lucas had been assigned the mission of keeping Emily locked up in her room so that Santa could deliver the gifts. Lucas had the idea to tell Emily a horror story at that point. It sounded like a fantastic plan. He might finally retaliate against her for destroying all of his devices and video games by accusing her of making her fear Santa Claus. He smirked and asked her, "Emily, do you want to hear the legend of Santa?" Emily appeared uneasy. No, I think I'm ready for bed. Lucas made a sneering remark. Do you want to go to bed? No way. When there are so many stories to share, that's impossible. Lucas, I don't want to. I'm tired and want to sleep. Please go out. Emily moaned as she tried to push her brother out the door. He refused to budge. Instead, he said, Why are you so averse to hearing about Santa? Do you think it's going to be scary? Would you please leave? No, you must first hear the legend. Then I'll go. She sighed and rolled her eyes. Fine, please, 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 please. Okay, I'm going to do it, he said. There was a period when Santa wasn't the person you know today. He did not have a beard or a huge belly. He was slimmer and wore a coat with patches made from the socks that he stuffed. He did not want anyone to see him, though, for they would pay a horrible price if they did. How much did it cost? She asked. It was the end. Santa, didn't want anyone to see him. Instead, he wanted people to believe in him just to believe in him. That is why there are often complaints of children dying that are made to the police. Emily's pupils shrank. So Santa killed those missing kids?
Mm-hmm.
Lucas smiled and nodded. Yep. When he got up to leave, he heard a loud noise from downstairs. It's Santa Claus. No way. What if he kills me because he realizes I'm awake? Emily muttered under her covers as she drew her blankets over her head. Oh, it's just likely our dog, he answered. Oh, could you double check? Oh, fine. I'll be back as soon as possible, Lucas said as he exited the room and shut the door behind him. He peered over the edge into the living room, trying to notice anything unusual. In the corner, there was a sliver of crimson and silver. He squinted his eyes. He was certain he saw a tiny man wearing what appeared to be a cloak downstairs. He snipped a piece of their stocking and sewed it to his cloak. But wait, that can't be. Lucas was pretty sure he'd made up that story in order to scare his sister, but that would imply that the slim man would turn around. Lucas dove to the right, hiding behind a clothesbin. He sat there for what seemed like an eternity, waiting for Santa to arrive. Lucas made a move to stand up when he was touched on the shoulder. He leapt to his feet and turned around. Santa was standing in front of him. What do we have here? Ho, ho, ho. It appears to be a naughty child. It's a pity, especially on the night before Christmas, to end up on Santa's naughty list. It should not make a difference, though. I'll look after you. He brandished a gleaming knife. Before bringing the knife down on Lucas's head, he muttered, Good night. Oh, bloody Santa.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, we're down to 5 minutes of the show. Next week, we'll be just within how many days to Christmas?
It won't be long. 5 days, because it'll be that following Sunday.
Yeah. So next week, we've got one more show before Christmas.
Ooh.
And then we'll have one more show until New Year's. So we got 2 more shows this year. Just 2 more this year will be over. Then we'll be in 2023. 2023.
2023. We're going to be in Beverly Hills 2023.
That's it. Don't forget, folks, myhaunteddogs.com right over there by Mr. Pat Cheeks himself. I mean,
Fat
Kevin.
Fat cheeks
And he's got books and books. Now show him the book that is one that provides comfort, not the blood crap.
Oh, the one that provides
Just
comfort. Well,
provide comfort. We've already scared the hell out of them with these stories.
no, that's not it. Let's see here. Well, I don't see the picture of it no more on here.
What's that?
Well, I got it right here then.
Right here.
Provides comfort at this comforting time of year.
There it is. Kevin's providing comfort to people he don't even know. And, that's a book worth giving, if none other, right there. And people like that book. If you've got a grandma, grandpa, Uncle Bob, Aunt Sue, give them one of these books. If you've got a little country church out there and you want to give something to all 35 of your church members, there's 35 books waiting for you right there. And it's not going to offend anybody. It's not going to hurt. It'd just be a good book. Kevin is about to play the harmonica.
I thought your commercial needed some country background music.
And if you want any of my books, and some of mine are also inspirational to varying degrees, the easiest way to find mine is go to Amazon.com and in the search bar, type in Dr. Kelsey Graham, and you'll come up with that's the only weird book I've got.
That's the only weird book.
Only weird book I've got. I left most of the weirdness to my friend Kevin. Yeah, what you want? Everybody's, what do you want? I put a picture of a guy with money bags because we do live in a capitalist society. Everybody wants money. And there's one. I do a lot of weddings. That's been my late in life career. There is a difference between a wedding and marriage, folks. I'm also a SYMBIS facilitator. I do a lot of premarital counseling, SYMBIS, Save Your Marriage Before It Starts. And you can learn more about that by going to my other website at www.drkelseygraham.com. Check it out. Read my reviews. Practical self-defense. This is not an Armageddonist view. It's just basic practical things, honestly, that you could do to help you feel a little bit safer every day without going ape crap over it like some people. So that's why I call it a practical self-defense. Practical preparedness, which falls in line. One of them is self-defense. This is preparedness. Basic things. If you go grocery shopping, Kevin.
Yep.
So do you buy just for one meal, or do you buy a week's worth of food, or how do you do it?
I usually get a week's worth.
Okay. So you're prepping for a week.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is what this is about. There's practical things that you should do around your house just to, and if we have an ice storm in Alabama, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen to us. Not only can people not drive and they don't know what to keep in their car just in case of an ice storm, just little basic things, but at home, the ice is horrible on our infrastructure. Your electricity could go out for days. So just basic preparedness things, not an Armageddonist view. But so as I say on the cover of that book, it's not a question of when a tornado or storm will come. It's only a question of when and where it'll hit. So we know these things happen. And so just to be practically prepared, which we don't do very well in our modern society like they used to do back in the old days.
Back in the old days.
Thank you for showing that book.
Well, you're welcome.
It's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday.
It's 9 o'clock.
And old man is ready to go. We're going to do one more time here. We got to get it down to where we can do the dueling harmonica.
The dueling.
All right.
Play.
Well, Catherine had a windstorm at her house that knocked
Yes.
out her internets and everything, and I'm about to have a windstorm at my house because I ate some beans. No, I didn't say that.
That silent yet violent storm there.
Peace and love. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and then we'll see you in another week with some more wonderful, some things positive, moving, and encouraging, and other things that scare the crap out of you. We're just a mixed bag of foolishness. What can I
Yes,
say?
we are.
We're bad people doing good things. All right, Kevin. Have a wonderful, blessed night. I'm gonna put the end button on.